Welcome back to the Morning Juice. I'm your host, Juice. Today we have our guest is Brittney. She is going to talk about living with an addict and how that affected her, and steps that she probably wished she could have done better. With that being said, Brittney, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'll just start off by saying that the person that I was with that was an addict, I was with him for 12 years
Okay.
and had a child with him, all of that. When we first met, I was 16, he was 18.
Okay.
And we used to ride around dealing drugs, honestly. He would sell weed and other things too. But that's what we did is we just kind of rode around and sold drugs to other people. And then once I got pregnant with our daughter, I stopped everything, and I decided that was the shift. And for me, he continued.
So you doing drugs at this time also?
Yeah. So the first time that I had ever done like a Roxy was with him. The first
Okay.
time I'd ever done a Xanax was with him. Things like that.
Okay. And so so now you're off the road.
Yeah.
You're out of the game,
Yeah.
and he keeps doing it.
Yeah, he continues. Some of the friends that we were hanging out with, he stayed hanging out with them because they still did drugs. I quit hanging out with them because at that point, I wasn't living that lifestyle. I'm now a mom, trying to take care of her, do all those things. And he decided to stay doing the drugs. He was gone all the time. I was with my daughter, taking care of her by myself most of the time, cooking, cleaning. I was even working, things like that. He would never have money because he was always buying drugs. So I was always footing the bill, with everything else too, plus taking care of the kid and everything. It was rough.
So you had your child at what age?
I was 22.
22.
Yeah.
So from 16 to 22, you was
I was wild.
yeah. 16, 22, you was doing your thing with
I
him.
was, yeah.
And then you had your child at 22. You stopped everything to be a mom.
Yes.
And he continued using and selling.
He wasn't selling at that point, and if he was, he did it behind my back, and I didn't know it because once I became sober and stopped using anything and became a mom, I was pretty straightforward. Like, hey, we ain't doing this.
Right.
And then he would go behind my back to do stuff and things like that. Come home late at night. I was left to tend to everything.
Okay. Well, so what was his DOC during this time? Like his drugs of choice?
He smoked weed, I think, the entire time. And then it started with hydrocodone. And then he would move up to Roxy.
Right.
And just it would continue to grow from there. I had got to a place where I couldn't do it no more. So I was like, I'm done. And I had left him and moved in with my mom. We were still talking. We have a kid together. I loved him and he loved me. So we ended up getting back together. He then started working, doing cell phone towers, climbing towers, things like that. And he was out of town all the time. He was in Missouri quite a bit. So then we decided to move to Missouri. And at this point, I'm a stay-at-home mom. He's traveling. I'm taking care of everything once again, but he is working. So he is bringing in income. I'm thinking that if we move out somewhere, he don't know nobody, then
his addiction would go down.
Yeah, his addiction would go down, but it don't matter where you go.
You're going to find it.
If you want it, you're going to find it, yeah.
So y'all moved to Missouri, and he's got a job, but is he any sobriety at this point, or is he still in addiction?
Better than what it was,
right?
But he was working around guys that were doing the same thing, so then he was falling right back in the same trap.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he got fired from this job?
No, he didn't get fired from the job, but what happened there was, I'll just tell the story like it was. It was Valentine's, and it fell on a Wednesday. He was going to be out of town, and we celebrated that weekend, and I made a steak dinner for him. He didn't do anything for me, but after 10 years of being together, I didn't expect anything. We're with each other. But I made him a steak dinner, and that was the first time I made like a cake from scratch and stuff, and because he was a big sweet eater. And that was my little gift of love to say, to him. It was Sunday night. I just put my daughter to bed. He fell asleep on the recliner. And typically, I couldn't get him off the recliner if he fell asleep. But for some reason, I nudged him, hey, I'm going to bed. And he gets up and he comes to bed with me. Well, being Valentine's, I want to cuddle up, get affection, things like that. And he don't want to cuddle up to me. It's February, it's cold outside, so I'm sure I'm cold, And he's like, well, why don't you rub your legs down to get warm? And I'm like, well, if you cuddle up to me, then you'll give me your body heat, and then I'll be warm. And he tells me, if I cuddle up to you, then, and give you my body heat, then I'm going to be cold. And at that moment, I knew there was a shift.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, he don't love me no more, is what was going on in my head. Who's to say that he wasn't on drugs?
Right.
And he just, that's not what he wanted, So at that point, that's when I knew I got to change something. And I decided to come back to Tennessee. And I remember sitting there before coming back to Tennessee. We were sitting on the couch. I was sitting on one side, he's sitting on the other. And he looked at me and he's like, you've changed. I said, do you want to talk about it? He said, no. I said, okay. And I knew at that point, like, there was nothing that could be done. I couldn't do anything to change any of the, dynamic between us two.
Right, the dynamic or the habits.
Or the habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew at that point, okay, I've got to do something for myself because he's going his route. He's going to do what he wants to do. But yeah, then we moved to Tennessee. And
about what age is this? What age are we at now?
Let's see. So I had her at 22. That was 2 years in, and then we were 2 years there. She's 4. So I guess I'm about 26 at this point.
Right.
Yeah, that's about right. 26, 27. We moved back to Tennessee so that I could get help with family. And when moving back to Tennessee, I told him that I was then going to work and have him be a stay-at-home dad so that, he could tend to the house. I wanted him to see what it's like,
right.
Be that way. But what that did was freed him up with time where he could go be around people that he used to hang out with and get back into drugs. And there was a guy that he would hang out with that was literally feeding it to him like candy.
Right.
Just to be hanging out and stuff. Well, here, man, here. And I didn't realize the extent of it until it had already got too bad.
Right.
And we were back in Tennessee for 2 years before separating. But what really drew the line for me was my 4-year-old daughter. I'd come home. He was mean to me too. Like when he was coming off of drugs, he was mean to me. Obviously, because he's in a sense withdrawing.
Yeah, he's looking for. You're right. He's looking for that next high, really.
Yeah. He was mean to me. I remember, I was exhausted from working 40 plus hours a week, and I'd go to bed. And he's like, all you do is you don't cook, you don't clean. All you do is you come in and you just go to bed. You don't do anything. But to me, I was thinking, with you being a stay-home dad, you would help with that. No. He wasn't doing anything.
Oh, so he wasn't doing the stay-at-home dad jobs?
No.
Okay.
No, he was actually taking my daughter with him to do jobs and was going to get him fucked up. And she would sit in the truck and play on his phone. And when I started catching on to what this was, I'd put stop to it. But
right.
There was already things that had happened, And what really drew it in for me was when my 4-year-old told me that she hated me and slammed her bedroom door in my face. And then I looked over at him and I threw my hands up like, help me, and he just shrugged his shoulders at me. Like he didn't care. Because at this point, they'd been hanging out. They're buddy at this point, and she's kind of pushed away from me because then they've been hanging out. I don't know what's going on, what he says to her, things like
right.
that, and, but she don't want nothing to do with me. And, she don't know what's going on. She's 4 years old. And she turned against me for whatever reason. I remember one time we and him had got into it, and he walked up to her and told her, don't tell mom that I'm leaving, okay? And that's because he was going out to go do something. He was leaving, so he wanted to tell her that he was leaving, but he said to her, don't tell her that I'm leaving. And that hurt because, we're supposed to be on a team with this kid.
Right.
And that's showing her that, you ain't got to tell mom what I do, and I know it's the drugs that's talking,
Right.
I know it's not him.
Right. It's the addiction.
Yeah. So it got pretty rough there at the end.
He was doing way more than Roxy at this point.
So when we moved to Missouri, it slowed down, and then he was doing Roxy's, but I don't know how much. And then when we moved back to Tennessee, he was getting fed hydrocodone because that's what his buddy was prescribed. And then he might have done things behind my back that I don't know of. I'm pretty sure he was still on the Roxy's hydrocodone at this point. And there were times where he was stealing money, that I had stashed away for us.
Yeah.
So that he could go and get a fix because he wasn't really working because he's supposed to be a stay-at-home dad.
Right.
And then I would find out that the money's gone and ask him about it. And he was like, yeah, I meant to put it back before, you ever found out.
Before you ever noticed I took it.
He was like, I was going to put it back, knowing damn well he wasn't going to put it back.
Right.
But, I got to a point to where, my kid's telling me she hates me. He's not going to help me, so I had to make a change, and I didn't want to leave the relationship, but I had to do something because the dynamic, nothing was changing.
It's actually getting more toxic.
It was. Yeah, it was. So then once I had him to leave, me and him did an on and off week thing with our child. And I could tell that he was getting worse. And he had ended up meeting a girl, and I tried to tell him, like, she's not the one for you. And come to find out, she's shooting up, heroin. She's doing heroin, and...
So he graduated to something else.
He did. He come to the house one time, and it broke my heart, really, to see him. He's in the kitchen sink, like, washing his hands, but he's like this, like... And sometimes you want to laugh about it, it's like kind
right.
of
It's right. It's like
time,
seeing the crackhead on the corner that you want to laugh, but it's just it's heartbreaking.
It's kind of pitiful at the same time,
absolutely.
And he's in there like washing his hands, and I'm like, hey, you gotta go. And he's like, what? I just got here, because he come to see her, and I'm like, you've got to go, And he was like, why? And I'm like, go outside. And he was like, Brittney, why are you telling me to leave? I just got here. And I told him, I said, I can tell that you're messed up. And he was like, but I'm not. And I said, hang on just a minute. I went inside and I had a drug test. And I said, if you're not messed up, then take this. He's like, well, I'm going to fail it for marijuana. I was like, okay.
That's fine.
You're telling me, so I know you're going to fail that.
Right.
Can you do this? And he's like, no. And he wouldn't do it. So that tells me that he's still doing stuff.
Right.
And so then... he leaves and all that, and it got to a point where, because I wasn't going to have him around our kid being, messed up, that he just quit coming around, So it was about a year in between, and he went and got with this girl, and they started shooting up. Wouldn't be surprised if he started doing meth, because he had a buddy that was doing meth. So he was going down a rough path.
Right.
And
messing with either one of them, there's no chance. I mean, there's high likely there's probably fent in it also at some point.
Oh yeah. I mean, he got so skinny, his cheeks were so sunk in. I mean, he looked like a skeleton. I mean, he looked like skin and bones, And it hurt to see him like that. Somebody that you love going down that far, but there's nothing you can do. Really. You tell them that you can get them help and all that, and they don't want it. They'd rather go get high than try to go get the help and live a different lifestyle.
Right. Because I mean, you can't force nobody in the recovery, because like they're not going to be there for the right reason. They're going to AMA. They're going to bounce out.
Yeah, they're doing it just because you said something about it, not because they want it.
Right.
Yeah.
He hadn't hit rock bottom yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think his rock bottom came when he was living with this girl that was married to another man, but they were separated. But they had went to the husband's house to live. So it's the husband, the woman, and him living in the same home, which is just, I'm sure to him, was crazy.
That's a terrible dynamic.
You know what I'm saying?
Like it. That's not the dynamic you want to be in.
And then what happened is the husband's then like, he can't stay here no more.
Right.
So then he goes and lives with, it gets crazier, the husband's grandma? Yeah. And I can guarantee you that this girl put him up to it. I'm sure he had something to do it too, but somebody that's on drugs, they ain't thinking clearly. And he ends up stealing like $10,000 worth from this woman. Well, she turns it in. And
of course.
Now the cops are after him. And that was his wake-up call, because he knew he was fixing to be gone for years in jail for this 10,000 theft, And he went and got detoxed. And he was in there for about a week. He wrote me a letter and everything. And then when he got out, he came and seen us. And for once in, I couldn't tell you how many years, the lights were on in him.
Right.
They were on. He was looking good. He was speaking like clear-headed, things like that, And I was like, okay, he might have a chance at this. And then he goes into a halfway house, a sober living home. And he had relapsed, and they kicked him out and told him, if you can't be here because there's people that are trying to become sober, and if you're going to do this,
Right, you're affecting their recovery.
Yeah. So he's like, I promise I won't do it again. So they let him back in. Well, he ends up somehow, the girl that he was dating, I'm assuming, got him another connection, and he relapsed, and it killed him. So my child no longer has a father now, because he chose to use even after getting sober.
Right. So he passed away at the sober living house?
He did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they found him in the bathroom, in the shower.
And how long ago was this?
It's been 2 years now.
2 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were separated for 2 years, and then it's now been 2 years since he's been gone.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. So we're talking 2023, 2022?
Yes. 2023. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And since then, like, did you do therapy or anything?
No, I think with us being separated for 2 years, I had done disconnected with him. And because he wasn't around my daughter and stuff, because he was out doing drugs, she had done disconnected. Because when he was in the home, he wasn't present.
Yeah.
He might have been sitting in the chair, but he wasn't actively present with us. He was always just kind of off in his own world, asleep, whatever. And if he wasn't at home, he was out doing other things and stuff. So I think for us, because we had that distance between, it didn't hit as hard. I mean, it hurt, to know my daughter doesn't have a father, because of drugs, And the sad part too is that he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. He had a good heart. He would help anybody. It wasn't like he was somebody that was just a piece of shit. He was actually a decent guy.
Yeah, and that's the misconception. A lot of people think, that people with addiction are just bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And you don't realize like how many people are functioning addicts in today's world.
Yeah.
And like these are like, I mean, I'm around addicts all the time. And literally once they get through some detox, they are some of the kindest, most loving, beautiful heart people there is. It's just they've had trauma or mental health issues they could just not.
Well, I think that's what he did was he had things that happened to him throughout his childhood, and then he got to be a teenager, and it's cool to go get fucked up with your buddies, and then it just took him. And he was then, once he got a little bit older in his 20s, he was then using that to numb the things that had happened.
Right, instead of getting the help that he desperately needed, And the difference between somebody that's healthy and addiction, like somebody in addiction, is literally the coping skills they use. Like when you're in recovery, you learn to walk, to ride a bike, to read, to like do all these things that you normally want to do. But when you're in addiction, it's just, I need that next fix because I can't control my life and I don't even want a life right now. I just want to just, yeah, it's like it's their girlfriend, it's their husband. Yes. Like it's just what it is.
That's absolutely how I felt, that he chose the drugs over me and our daughter.
Yeah.
And that hurt in itself because it's like, are we not important to you? And it wasn't until he passed away that I had to understand he couldn't help what was going on.
And the good thing about it, as far as the addicts go in 2025. Here in the last few years, like, the focus has turned away, or starting to turn away that they're just an addict. Like now when they come into treatment centers, they're not just detoxed and kicked out. Now they're brought in and they're like, what got you here?
Yeah.
Like what made you do this to just, because nobody, like, I can't honestly think of a single person that has ever been in addiction and was like, you know what? I just want to be an addict. Like, it's a great life. I got to lie, cheat, steal.
Yeah.
I'm going to make everybody hate me. I'm going to be focused on this chemical. Like, I don't see anybody being like, yeah, that's the lifestyle I want.
Yeah.
And the people that don't have addiction in their family, that's how they view it. They view it as like
as if they're scumbags.
Right. You're a scumbag piece of shit. And it's not the case. Like, this stuff is like literally the only time it's an addict's fault is the first time.
Yeah.
You
They
know,
made that choice.
right? And you know, and like, and I'm sure he heard it too. Like, just put it down, just stop. You know,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, I even said it to him.
yeah, because you didn't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
mean, I'm sure you've done research and studied it since everything has
Oh, yeah.
happened to get yourself
More aware. Of
more
what
aware. Because at
they're
some
going
point,
through.
your daughter's gonna have questions.
Yes.
You know, there's gonna be important dates that come up. You know, 18th birthday, 21st birthday, graduation. You know,
Having a
prom.
child, getting married.
Right.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there's gonna be important dates, and at some point, she's gonna want to be like, why?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm sure you've been studying this, correct?
Oh, yeah. So it's kind of crazy because I lost my father at 17. So I didn't get to have my father there when I had a child and, you know, big milestones in my life. So it's kind of weird how my daughter has lost her father. I lost my father in a different way though. But it's wild how both of us had lost our fathers, and I can help her cope through these things.
Yeah.
You know, because I've lost mine as well. It still doesn't take the pain away.
Right.
I know that it's coming, you know. And again, you know, that is something when it comes to addiction and you lose somebody to the drug, you know, that you have to prepare yourself for when that child does get older. Is like they're going to have questions.
Right. Because, I mean, if it was 2 years ago, she would have been 8, 9 years old,
Mm-hmm.
approximately.
Yeah.
You know, and which is old enough to know dad's not coming back, but not really understanding
The future.
why.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, dad's gone, but we don't know.
Yeah.
And one day that's gonna hit her. As far as she's concerned, has she done any type of like
therapy
for it or anything yet?
She hasn't. No. I do my best to make sure that I hear everything that she has to say. I let her speak on anything that she may want to speak on in regards to her father, because I want that an open table.
Absolutely.
Because that's how you cope through things, is being
Absolutely.
able to get it out. Yeah.
That's when you have to sit there as a parent and listen to hear, not listen to respond.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and as far as a parent goes, that's hard sometimes, you know, because like
busy life, you know.
Yeah, because like there's gonna, like you said, there's a point where this conversation's gonna come up, and it's gonna bring back some like tough memories and some triggers, you know, and you have to kind of like prepare her for it also, because like, you know, statistics show if there's addicts in the family, you know, it tries to be a generational thing, because
and that's what scares me. Is I'm wondering, you know, I hope that she don't ever like, well, why did dad do this? Let me do it so I can see what it was.
Right.
Why he wanted
why
to do
was
it.
this so good?
Yeah.
You know, why did he choose this over me?
So, and with that being said, I've had to dig deep within to talk to her, and she's young. She can't fully let out her full childhood because I'm having to talk to her about grown people stuff. Yeah. You know, about drugs and things like that. That I didn't expect to ever come at a young age.
Right.
Her. But because her father passed away from it, I've got to bring it to her in an early age. You know, I'm not going to lie to her about it.
Right. I mean, which I feel like that is the best thing you can do. Like, I in my personal opinion, you know, being open and honest about it, and not being like, you know, dad's just on vacation, you know, like, you know, like really just like, hey, let's process as a family. You know, and the older you get, I know there's going to be questions and possible nightmares and stuff that pops up.
You know, him passing away from a drug overdose. What do you say to a kid, you know, other than that's what happened?
Yeah. I mean, and even at that age that she was, you're not going to say it right away, because like, she's not going to understand what overdose even means. But at some point, you know, she's probably going to be like, what is this? What did dad die of? Or, you know, how did he die? Like, I need to know, you know, I need to figure out why. And you're prepared for it. Like, you know, that question's coming down the road, you know, and it's just like, you know, what, you know, you got to like be ready for it. That way you can have that conversation. So, you know, we pray that she don't go down that road, you know, and
because it's in her bloodline.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's the scary part, is like, you know, addiction is a chemical dependency, which means there is something that wired differently in these people. And it's like, literally the first time is their only fault.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like most time addicts will trade one addiction for another for a while. Like
Yeah.
if they get sober on drugs, you'll see them gambling, or they'll turn to porn, or just anything,
Yeah.
or whatever they go 100 miles an hour at, until they figure out how to like calm that addiction part of their brain down, which thank goodness there's a lot of good meds out there, even though, some treatment centers don't believe in the MAT program. I am a big believer in the MAT program because I've seen it save a lot of lives. And, for me, it's like, if it's saving lives and it's been scientifically proven to save these lives, like
Yeah.
let's use what we got to help these people get
Well, it's
better.
a step-by-step process also. I mean, if you can get away from this and you're going to this and it's helping you to be able to function without all of this, then the next step is going to be without all of it.
Right.
At some point you're going to be able to do
Yeah, at some point, like, I mean, I don't know anybody that's been on like Suboxone or the Visceral shot. I think it's called Visceral. I don't know anybody that's been on that for like 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
But like, if it makes them feel like they're not, as long as they feel comfortable taking it, and it's like, okay, if I take this, I won't do drugs tomorrow. I will be alive today.
Yeah.
To me, it's a no-brainer.
So
like
the brain has a way of rewiring itself.
Absolutely.
And that's what happens when you do drugs too. Is you wire your brain to this chemical, so that's what it's constantly wanting, and that's why they can't get away from it. But if they can slowly get away from it, the brain will start to rewire.
Right.
And then they can get to a point to where they're no longer needed.
See, and that's where it comes off as a mental disease, because like, it's a mental health disorder, because like it's like the same with depression. If you got negative self-talk, your brain wires itself to be negative all the time. And like, you literally have to talk your way through that. Like with my clients, I'm like, hey, positive affirmations in the mirror. Every time you wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, positive affirmation.
Something I did. I wrote on my mirror with a dry erase marker, and it said high five. And that was to change that wiring process, because I was going through some things. And I would literally high five myself in the mirror. And it's like, why am I giving myself a high five? But it changed the neuros in the brain.
Because after all this happened, you were like, why me? Like, what could I have done different? Did I do enough to try?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything else possibly I could have done? Right. I know you had to have those questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
there's still to this day that, I feel like, was there something else that I could have done?
Right. But like on the other side of it, we can't take that blame. That blame can't be placed upon us, because then that wrecks our own mental health. Was it. I hate when people say that was his choice or that was their choice, because like that means you're saying it's their fault that they did it. And before I had to have my own mental health recovery, I had that. That's how I looked at people.
Yeah.
Because I was making money. I didn't care. All my bills were paid, and I would see somebody on the street corner dancing around like, you'd be like, yo, crackhead. But now I'm like, that's somebody's brother. Right. That's somebody's dad. That's somebody's uncle.
What's a living, breathing human being?
Yeah, like, how did I ever say what I said about that person years ago, when like today I would be like, what can I do to help him? Mm-hmm. Like, and I think for me, like I won't give a homeless person money, because I don't trust what they're going to do with it.
Well, you're not trying to feed the addiction.
Right. Yeah. So I don't give them money. But when I pass somebody that's homeless and I have like water or snacks, even Narcan, I give that to them.
Yeah.
Because like they need that stuff.
Right.
Especially the Narcan. Good Lord. If he might have had it in that situation, it might have turned out different, And so like, if I see an addict on the street corner trying to raise money, I will stop and give him Narcan if I can get to him, because
there's been times where I've seen people, you can tell who's using and who's not.
Yeah.
And they're going to want money because that's the way they're going to get their next high.
Right.
But I'll go to the store and I'll grab them, if it's hot outside, get a Gatorade and some, just something, some food and stuff, because, they're not going to spend that money on food. They
right.
Got to eat.
And they're not going to spend it.
Yeah, they're not going to spend it.
So like, now that you've had to live through a death of a loved one that was an addict, you see the whole scenario
Oh
differently,
yeah.
or did you start seeing it differently as you was living with the addict, or was you more blaming as you
There
was
was a
living?
point where I was like, because I grew up, my aunt and uncle, they done hard drugs growing up. So I already had this persona that, they ain't nothing.
Right,
I already had that. And then I fell in love with an addict. So it did change the way that I viewed people that are addicts, to the point of, you know, they're 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 dealing with their own sufferings, and it was at a point like, what can I do to help?
right,
And it does come to at a point like there's nothing that you can actually do
right. I
until
mean,
they want that help
absolutely.
also.
Like, I tell families, when you're having to deal with families, when you're treating somebody with addiction, you have to try. It's almost like you have to walk that fine line with them. This is not.
Yeah,
You
have the
know,
boundaries in
you're
place,
right. You got to have a
generally.
boundary in place. Like I had a parent call me one time. It was like they're not allowed back home until they can get sober, and I feel like I am killing my child. And I
Yeah.
was like, I understand why you feel that way, but like sometimes you got to make sure you're in a safe place, because
Yeah.
like if they're stealing and robbing from you and people
Mhm.
are coming to your house, like you have to put those boundaries
Right.
up, as terrible as they are, because nobody wants to do it. They
Right.
just want to get the person to get better.
Right.
And back in the old ways, we would do that. We would kick them out. We would
They got to fend for themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
get out on the streets, and then they're like, well, what'd that do? Well, that got them to
Mhm.
where they're hustling for money, stealing, robbing,
Which is getting them in more shit.
more trouble,
Yeah.
more arrest, harder drugs.
Yep.
Instead of just like trying to have
Well, the
that
crazy
conversation.
thing too is that the harder drugs are cheaper.
Yeah,
So they're getting they can make a small amount of money and go get something that's harder and get them more high, and then that's where it gets even trickier, because then they're not going to want to get away from that,
right,
because it's cheaper, and it's getting them more high, and it's sad.
right.
It is.
And like why he was living, and he was in active addiction and staying with you and stuff. Did he keep? Was he trying to keep his addiction away from y'all? Did he try to hide it? Was he?
It was never out in the open, ever. I'd never seen anything, other than weed.
Right, right.
But the pills, I'd never even seen them. If he did anything harder than that, never known it.
Right.
Never known it.
So
until
he
after
kept it. I mean,
did.
you saw him as he
If
was
I were
hot
to
or
say
coming
anything
down.
to him, if he would find a way to hide it even better.
Right.
Because he didn't want to be called out on.
Yeah, and he definitely didn't want y'all to see it.
Yeah.
He didn't want something to happen and your child accidentally find it.
Right.
Because you see that sometimes. It's not that the addict wanted their child to find it and take it and something happened to the child. It's just they got to the point where they were so high they passed out before they
Right.
put it back where they had it. And like I think you are the first person that's been on the show that's had to show that side of it. And that's why I wanted you on the show,
Yeah.
is because like we've had addicts on here who's in recovery for 3 to 5 years, 90 days, like but to have somebody that's had to live on it on the other side is important also, because like you have families out here that are like hopeless.
Yeah.
And they're hopeless because all they want is their child to get better.
Yes.
Or their spouse or their dad or whoever it is, their mom. They just want them to get better, and they just don't know what to do. And I always try to tell them, try to call a professional. Let us try to talk them. Some of the professionals have a real way of getting to them.
Yeah.
Like trying to be like, we
Well,
know
it's
you
one
don't want to
thing-
be here.
Yeah, it's one thing for an addict to talk to their spouse, and their spouse is trying to tell them like, hey, do this and do that, and they're gonna be like, I'm not gonna listen to them. But like you, for instance, you're a friend, you're somebody, but you say the same thing that I may say, they may listen to you versus listening to the person that they're
Right.
closest to.
And for me, it's like, I guess on my end, when I see an addict day one, like when I was working at the ranch, and even working here, when I see him at day 30, it's just like, what can I do for you? And I always tell them, like, let's get this garbage out. Like, let's
Yes, I was gonna
let's
say
pull that root out. Let's
Yeah.
get that garbage out, because like, to me, the more they can get that stuff out that's hurt them, that's hurt their feelings, even if their families don't even know they hurt their feelings.
Yes.
But the more they can just tell me what's hurt them to live the life that nobody wants to live, the less likely they relapse. Now you have some that act like they tell you everything, and then you find out 2 weeks after they left, they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, I've lost several, and it's fucking terrible, because you're like,
what could I have done?
As a professional, it's not as, I was taught early working in recovery, you got to show empathy, but not sympathy, because if I show sympathy, I'm taking on their garbage,
Yeah.
and it's going to affect my recovery. So when I lost my first ever client, I was working the day I found out at the other facility I was at. I was working the day I got the call from his mama that he passed away. He was a 19-year-old kid. And I hadn't had no losses yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had friends that had lost to addiction, but this kid had been gone for 5 days. And and he's the one that will always stick with me. And I learned that also working in recovery, you always remember your first one, just because, you're new blood in there, and, you're trying to save everybody. You're trying to be like Captain Save All.
It digs at you.
Right. So, like, and you have such a young kid that just could not beat the system or beat it out. And it's just like, and I will never forget him as a person, because I saw the beautiful soul he truly was. And some people out there is like, oh, it's just another dead addict, and that's the stigma with having people like you on that's lived through this, and me going through the mental health side of it. That's why I do this, is because, like, I just want to break that stigma.
Yeah.
Like these people are, like, for the most part, these are great people. They're just troubled.
Yes.
Like, they're hurting.
Most of the time, they'll start doing drugs because they're wanting to hide themselves.
Right.
And like you were saying, really, they just want somebody that will understand them, that will talk to them, allow them to be who they are, even if they are an addict, but just be able to get it out there. And once they can do that, they realize, the more that they would do it, they'll come around to themselves.
Right.
And not want to do,
And that's why we always tell them right off the rip, hey, tell yourself in the mirror you like yourself.
Yes.
You might not like yourself today, but like the key phrase I was taught in recovery when I was a client was fake it till you make it. Because you have to fake it at the beginning to start changing your brain until you start, like,
rewire that brain.
Right. Because, like, at 3 weeks, I said it for 3 weeks that I liked myself and I didn't give a damn about myself. But about that third or fourth week, I woke up one morning, I was washing my hands, finna say my affirmation. I was like,
kind of liking myself today.
Kind of proud of you, man.
Yeah.
Like, you have really spread some shit that you've been holding on your chest for 30 plus years, And I guess, like, getting into the field, it's like, I want everybody to be able to spew it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I know how much better I felt.
And it felt good to be able to do it.
And I tell everybody, even when we have the addicts in here, I'm like, this is going to be hard work. The beginning of this is going to be terrible, because you're going to have to face the thing that made you be an addict. Yep. Whatever that is, whatever trauma that is, whatever death that was, whatever ass whipping you got, whatever cussing you got out by grandmama who didn't like you, whatever that trauma is, because that's another thing with this whole field. Everybody's like, well, that trauma wasn't really that bad. Okay, you might not think it's bad, but for that person, it was fucking terrible.
Yes, that it led them to that. It was so
Absolutely
bad to where it led to something else. To say that it's not bad to you is kind of discrediting what they went through.
And like, when you're in treatment and you're hearing all these people share their stuff, and you're sitting over like, well, shit, my life wasn't that bad, but it was to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is my story as terrible as the guy sitting beside me? Who knows? But, like, it was terrible to me.
Yeah.
It's a personal experience. Those times it was terrible to me. I don't think my whole life was terrible by no means. There was just terrible times that I couldn't process correctly.
Well, that is something, now that you bring that up, that's something that I would tell myself, because when I would have bad days and things, I was like, man, my life is just in shambles. But then I had to remind myself it's just a bad day, not a bad life.
Right.
And if people could go about their life with that, it's not a bad life, it's just a bad day.
Yeah, and
You
see,
know?
like that's what I like telling my guys. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I was like, what's been bad? And they'll say something. I was like, no, that's not even a bad day, bro. That's a bad moment.
Yeah.
You had a bad moment. You're turning a bad moment to a bad hour, to a bad half a day, now to a bad day. You're gonna wake up tomorrow thinking about it. Now you're 2
Yes.
days, and here we go. We're going down that roller coaster
Yeah.
again. I'm like, no, bro. Tell me 5 good things you did today.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
made your bed. You brushed your teeth. You
Even
got
if it's the smallest
yeah,
things.
and that's what I
You
was
woke
taught.
up today.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like when I was in treatment, I'd be like, man, it's this day. And they're like, all right. They would sit me down. They'd be like, what'd you do positive day? Not a fucking thing. Are you awake right now? Yeah. 1. You got clothes on? 2.
Sometimes it's that tough love that you need.
Yeah. And they're like, did you eat breakfast? Yeah. Did you eat lunch? Yeah. Did you brush your teeth? Yeah. Are you breathing right now? Yeah.
But then it starts to rewire that brain
Right.
to realize,
And
I don't have it as bad as what I think I do.
right. And they're like, okay, so you had 100 good things a day and you let one bad thing piss off your whole day. It's like, look at it as 100 to 1.
Mhm.
Now what are we looking at? And I'm like, oh.
So, because I've went through this with being an addict, and I've went down a healing journey of my own, got into yoga, got into sound healing, meditations and things like that.
How'd you like sound healing?
It was beautiful.
I like sound
just
healing.
laying there, and I can feel it.
Yeah, like the vibrations.
It's nice.
Where they say it's like the vibrations of the
Yes.
sun and the earth, and like.
So I'll tell you something that I've come to learn is it's really is a healing thing, because the way that your brain works, the neurons that's in there, you can sound and the vibrations that's in there, the frequencies that's in there, you can push certain things out of your mind to where you don't even realize it's there anymore. Like in terms of an addict, if they were to go and do these healing things, they could start to see a difference within themselves, and that become the addiction.
Right.
Sound baths, meditation, those types of things to get them to their core of who they are,
Right.
instead of this person that's an addict. And
Right.
stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the first time I had sound healing, I was working here at Path.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. I was, a year and a half in recovery. And we're like holistic medicines and stuff like
That's
that.
my
So
thing.
we do sound healing, we do acu-detox and stuff like that. And I was like, I am so scared of this. And one of the bosses was like, no, I promise you like meditation and you like prayer, like this is going to change your world. So the first time I had it, my shoulder kept bouncing off the floor. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell is happening? So I asked the lady that was facilitating, and I was like, she's like, anybody got any questions? And I raised my hand. I was like, why was my shoulder bouncing off the floor? Like, I don't get it. Like, I could not keep it on the floor. And I was like, it's when you hit the high frequencies. Because then I was trying to figure out what sound was it that was doing it. And she asked me, she's like, you got arthritis in your shoulder? I said, absolutely. She's like, the vibrations was trying to work that arthritis out. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. She's like, sound healing's good for like neuropathy and all kinds of stuff, which I suffer from neuropathy. So like every time we get sound healing here, I'm like, yes, let's rock it.
Yes, I love all of that stuff. Even breath work.
Yeah.
Breath work is really good too. It gets you can get a high off of breath work,
Yeah,
and it's a good one.
It gives you the dopamine that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what I tell people, like meditation to me, meditating and being able to actually visualize some of the stuff they say in the meditations, because I like like the ones where you close your eyes
They
and you're
talk
like,
to you.
yeah, they're like, picture yourself at a lake. Do
And
you
then
hear
here
the
comes the lake.
yeah? And then you're like, do you hear the water? Do you hear the boats? And you're like, I do. I fucking do. I like this.
Yeah,
you know. And it's like, I remember when I first went to the ranch to get my recovery, they did meditation probably once a week. First couple of weeks, I was like, I don't see none of this shit. Like, this ain't ever gonna work. And it wasn't until after I got out of the ranch and was about 6 months in recovery, because I kept trying it.
Yeah.
And then finally I did it one day and I was like, oh.
It's peaceful.
I'm like, I don't hear nothing else right now. I can hear myself talking to myself, but it's like, I see the creek. Oh, I see the little leaf floating down the creek, because they're like, take the leaf as your thought and watch the thought go away. And you're like, oh, I see it. and like, and I tell people meditation's like one of my favorite things to do, and like, with addiction, trying these new things helps them get them in a mindset to where they can like talk about their stuff.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
like, you got some people, he was in addiction, what, 12? It seemed like 12 to, no, he went from 18 to,
He was in it before I met him.
okay, so we're
yeah.
talking
Probably
20,
when he was 16. It could have even been when he was 14 when he first started.
right? So we're talking 20, 25 years,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of trauma and addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Not on top, I mean, not
To
even the
undo.
main trauma
Yeah.
that started the addiction. So like, like, that's why there's always a lot of people, that's why you see people that's in addiction, they go back, several times because they don't get it all out and then they relapse,
Mm-hmm.
but once they get it all out, like, their relapses, it goes down. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes, it goes down,
Especially when they're being given the proper coping skills,
right,
to be able to get through things, because that's why they run back to it, is they're feeling like, okay, well, I can't do this, so I need that fix again.
Because that's their coping skill. That's that would be like, for me, if I didn't learn my coping skills, self-harm would be my coping skill. Like, I would just go cut or punch myself, put my head like against paper towel holders and like toilet paper holders and whatever I could hit my head against, and it's just like, but now I get like that. I'm like, okay, I got to bury my face in ice water. Okay, I got to go take a cold shower. Okay, maybe a hot shower this time to change up the temperature.
Which is better than what the other thing is.
Right,
Yeah.
because it's like, or I have to pick up that 3,000-pound telephone and call somebody and be like, hey, I need some help right now.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, and that's the one. Like, if you pick up the phone, if that's why I tell anybody that's got my number, if you call me between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., I know you're in a crisis that, like, if somebody don't pick up, something bad could possibly happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, people are like, hey, you don't ever shut your phone off. How you don't get sleep? And I'm like, if I have to choose between 8 hours of sleep or waking up to a missed call and finding out that person passed away,
Yeah.
like, I refuse it. Like, it's...
So I was, after leaving my child's father, because I was neglected, I was out seeking, for affection and things because I was neglected. And I ended up in another relationship, and he was an alcoholic. And in that relationship, he was not very nice. And there was a lot of trauma that was done in that relationship. I remember there was one time where we're driving down the road, and he was angry. In an instant, he would switch on me, and then he'd start driving crazy, and I've got my kid in the car, and I don't know what's going on. So then now I'm in a frenzy, like, whoa, and I'm trying to calm him down and things like that. There was one time where he tried to put me out on the side of the road. We were going to a wedding of a friend of mine, and we're 2 hours away, and he just flips out on me and pulls over on the side of the interstate and is like, you get the fuck out, And I'm like, whoa, like, what's going on? He was like, I need you to get out, because you're pissing me off. And it was very traumatic.
So was he nice when he wasn't drunk, and then was like an angry drunk?
He was an angry drunk. There would be trigger points. When he was drinking, it'd come on a lot quicker,
right,
than whenever he wasn't. He can control it when he wasn't, drinking and things. There was one point we had went out somewhere, and I had just said something that triggered him, that made him kind of flip out on me, and he told me to pull off so he could get out. And he was so mad at me for whatever reason, he threw the beer can at my face. And it's all in the car, hit me in the, I had a bruise on me and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was very traumatic what I experienced in that relationship. And what was really confusing is when I met him, he had cancer. He had lung cancer. So I was trying to be the nurturing woman, helping a man, and all that. And
which was what you was doing in the first relationship.
Yeah, trying to nurture and all of that and everything, and then that didn't work, so I'm going to another one.
So let me go nurture somebody else.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll go save somebody else since I couldn't save him.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, absolutely. And I found myself in the same position, different drug of choice, but it was the same position, taking care of somebody else. And it hurt me even more than the first,
Yeah, because you at this point, you're probably like, okay, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, why do I keep finding these types?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like,
Well, because my what one would say drug of choice, I guess, my addiction was to be loved. I wanted to love and be loved,
yeah,
and it took me going through both of these, relationships to understand that I have to give that to myself.
right.
You know,
And you don't need to be a caregiver.
Absolutely.
Right, like you're not.
Yeah,
I'm not. You're not here to raise a grown man. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You gotta like they gotta come in 50. They gotta come in with their 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So-
yeah. It
So-
was tough.
So how long did that relationship last?
It was 3.5 years. Yeah, and it's been 10 months since that ended. Yeah.
So you went back to back traumatic relationships.
Yes, and the second relationship was even more traumatic than the first one
because he talked to you worse.
Yes, he treated me worse than the first. Yeah.
Right.
My child's father, he just wasn't present. He was just gone, and then he would steal and things like that. But he never called me out of my name, never put his hands on me or nothing like that.
He was a gentle soul.
He was very much so. Yes.
Just a troubled, gentle soul.
Absolutely. The other, he was an angry man.
He was mad at the world.
At the world.
Probably because of his cancer.
That and the way he grew up.
Right.
His baby mama.
And it was everybody else's fault.
It was everybody's fault. It was even my fault for what had happened to him in the past.
Right.
And I had to take that on too. Not that I had to. That was a choice that I made.
Right.
But I became a victim to all of his stuff.
Right.
And he actually ended up getting sober because he got his third DUI. And when he started becoming sober, obviously he changed, because he's going from having a drink in his hand every day, a couple of them a day, to not having anything. So he's probably going through some psychosis, to be honest,
Especially if he was a drinker for a long time anyway.
Oh, yeah. And he didn't know how to interact with me anymore. I done put in all this work trying to help him, get him sober.
Because now that he's sober, he's not even the same person.
Not even the same person. Yeah.
And that happens. And people don't understand.
I had to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted for him, is just be happy. You know? I wanted him to be happy, be sober, and live a better life. So I had to be okay with him separating, even though I had put so much into this.
Right.
I had to be okay with it.
Because once he hit sobriety, you wasn't the type of person, unfortunately, that he wanted. He wanted somebody like
right.
But part of that was probably guilt too, though. Like
I think so.
I think he got sober and was like, "Man,
I've done all this.
I've done her all this shit to her. There's no reason. I need a break. I need her to have a new start." Not realizing, dude, you're sober now. We could probably fix
heal,
this.
Yeah,
we could do some. We could do some couples therapy.
I give him a space and everything, but he was still, well, he's a dry sober. I mean, he's what's it called?
A dry drunk.
Yeah, where he's not getting he's not going through a step process or nothing like that, and he's been sober for 2 years, so hopefully he can keep that streak. But I mean, if you don't have anything that's helping you along with that, the coping mechanisms, there's a chance that you could fall back to it.
Right. You're just playing Russian roulette,
basically. Once the courts and all of that go away, who's to say? Is it going to be
right? Again? Like if he's only sober just to get off paper and not go to prison, like are you really?
Yeah.
Well, you could say you're sober, you just can't say you're in recovery.
Yeah.
I say that to people. You're sober, but are you in recovery?
Yeah.
Are you
There's a difference.
Because in recovery, one of the principles is service work. One of the principles is doing your steps. I do service work. This is considered service work. I do the service work because, like, if you're in recovery, you want to do what you can for other people to find recovery.
Yeah.
Because, like, you want to make that family bigger.
Uh-huh.
You want your community
You've lived
bigger.
It. You've come out of it.
Right.
Now you're wanting to give to the others.
Right, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not working any steps whatsoever, you're basically just playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
You're like, every day you wake up, you're just spinning it and just hoping that nothing bad happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whereas in recovery, if you're struggling with that decision, you're like, hey, I'm going to go hit a couple of meetings. I'm gonna go talk to my sponsor.
Well, talking like we were talking, getting it out in the open, because if you're not able to sit here and get out in the open what happened in the past, you're holding it all in.
And like, here's my thing also. Like, I've done my 12 steps already once. Well, have I had fuck ups since I've done my 12 steps? Absolutely. So you know what you gotta do? You gotta start your 12 steps over.
Yeah.
And it's made to where you never stop the 12 steps.
Right.
Like, I will do 12-step work until I'm gone. Because like,
it keeps you going. It keeps and away from.
It's accountability.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I say it is. It's accountability. Like, it's accountability to myself every single day. You know, if I mess up, well, let me just go ahead and write that down when I hit step 4 again, and I gotta, like, confess everything that I've done. Because like, anybody that's done step work, they know step 4, 5, and 9 are the steps that everybody hates. Like, anybody that's done recovery work, what's the worst steps for you? 4, 5, or 9? Well, because 4 and 5 is talking about taking inventory for everything you done. 9 is trying to like make amends with what you did, and if you can't actually make amends with the person, because sometimes they don't want to hear your shit whatsoever, you write that letter, you burn that bastard, and just be like, that was me making amends with the situation. I can't fix the relationship, but I can take that off my plate. And so, like, if you're not doing recovery, if you're not doing your steps, then like, you're not taking inventory every day. Like, it's just,
there's a possibility of falling right back.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, yeah, you gotta have. I'm a big believer that you gotta have some sort of meetings. I personally like doing virtual meetings. Like, a lot of people hate them. But like, I tell people all the time, I say it on this podcast all the time. If I can't sleep at 2:00 in the morning, I can jump on Emotions Anonymous website, and you go to find a meeting, and then there's a Zoom link, and you link in, and you can be in Australia or England, or, or that part of the world, but it's like, they ask you your name, and they're like, oh, where are you from? Where are you from, cat? We're all Australian people on here, and you got this, where are you from? But it's cool. And a lot of times when I do those meetings, a lot of times they're just speaker meetings. It's somebody speaking, and I just mute, no video, listen until I fall asleep, because I just need it, because one, I need to go to sleep, and 2, I need it because that's my bad times. When I feel like I can't call nobody.
Something I've come to realize when it comes to addicts also is they need community, and not the community of the other,
right?
Not the addict community.
They need recovery community.
Yes, they do.
And see, that community, going to meetings, is part of the foundation you have to build to be in recovery. Yeah. Like, you gotta have it. Like, it's steps. Like, it's all laid out for you. You just got to follow the steps.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a process.
You got to do them. You got to do the meetings. Sometimes you got to go in treatment centers. Some people ain't got to. Some people can cold turkey it. God bless the ones that can, because I've seen the people that go through detox, and detox is rough. Like, I will tell anybody that's wanting recovery, detox is tough. Like, it's not fun to watch them. I can't imagine what it feels like.
You can do.
You just. Here's you some Gatorade, and here's you some crackers. Let's try to see if we can hold that down for a little while. It's terrible. But like, for you living with 2 addicts, basically, two people in addiction, different types of addiction, and getting out of both situations, like, do you look at people differently because you lived with 2 addicts? Like, do you like?
Anybody that I come across, I try to have compassion, because we don't know what they're going through, what they've been through, what they're experiencing that very moment. I've even had my own situations where, people didn't know what I was going through, that I wanted some compassion. So I always try to just give people I guess you could say, the benefit of the doubt.
Meet them where they're at.
Meet them exactly where they're at. Yes. And, if they need help, give them the hand. There's a little quote that I come up with, people like to, eye for an eye. Well, why not do a hand for a hand? Like, why don't you give a hand instead of trying to come at somebody?
Right.
And I've I try to help somebody versus trying to, make them feel worse about their situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Especially going through, having love for two people, that have been addicts, and one didn't make it. One did, one didn't, um, just being more compassionate towards people, and asking if they need help.
right. And as we're coming toward the end of this podcast today, first of all, thank you so much for coming on,
Yeah.
because like I feel like this view is like, it's very important. We try to spice it up and, not have the same thing every week, even though sometimes it happens. We try to like bounce around, different age groups, different whatever. As we come to the end of the show though, like, of course, thank you for coming on, but like, what is there anything that you could possibly think of to say to anybody that's living with an addict right now? Is there any kind of advice or any type of anything?
Yeah. For somebody that's living with an addict, don't get yourself upset over their addiction. Stay true to who you are. Have compassion for them, but have boundaries. Allow them to know, I'm not going to do this for you. I love you. We can talk about it, but I'm not going to, go out of my way and exude myself, for something that you're choosing, that you want, I can help you, things like that. But stay true to who you are. Don't fall into the traps of getting angry with them, because
Don't fall into the chaos of
the
it.
chaos. Yeah, because that's only gonna hurt you in the long.
I love that. Like that's excellent advice. As we come to the end of the show, remember, if anybody needs to reach out to us, you can reach out to us on our website, morningjuicepod.com. You can reach out to us on Instagram at morningjuicepod. We're on Facebook at Morning Juice, and on YouTube, we're on there at the Morning Juice also. If you know anybody that wants help or you need somebody to talk to, please reach out. I actually had somebody reach out to me today that I am, trying to figure out where they're at right now. Say prayers for that person right now, because we're trying to figure out, what we should do and what we need to do for him. And with that being said, we'll see you next time on the Morning Juice. Thank you.